want to call the meeting to order for the special meeting of the Transportation Committee for Wednesday, October 17th. And before we get to the approval of the agenda, I just wanted to announce that our next regularly scheduled Transportation Committee meeting falls on November 12th, which is Veterans Day, and the council is closed to observe Veterans Day. So we think we're going to do what we did tonight and have it on at the end of the committee of the whole on the 7th. This way we get chocolate, so that's all good. Unless anybody has a problem with that, that is the tentative plan. So next up is approval of the agenda. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
And the agenda is approved. Next up, approval of minutes for October 8th, 2018.
Move approval. Second.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
And the minutes are approved. Actually, Peter was not informed of our change for tonight, so and he really wants to give the liaison report, so he will come to our next meeting to give the TAP report. Next up is MTS Director Thompson.
Madam Chair and members, thank you. A couple updates on Metro Mobility. As of last week, we have completed the transition of the agency contract. As you may recall, we did several moves where each week we would move another set of customers either to the agency contract or from the existing agency to the demand service. I can say that all customers are moved. Things are working very well. I think all major issues have been resolved. And I want to extend a thank you not only to MTS staff, but really the transit providers, First Transit and Team Transit, really did a lot of work to make sure that this transition was not disruptive at all to these customers, those with our biggest needs. I think it's been a successful and smooth transition. We can report that. The other thing on Metro Mobility, let you know that the Metro Mobility Fall Forum is coming up on October 24th from 10 to noon this year. This time it's at the Wilder Foundation on Lexington University. We have two spring and a fall forum where we invite all our customers and caregivers in we can listen to what their concerns are and any issues, and we can give an update on any changes in the service. So you're welcome to attend. I know some of you attended last spring or fall in Bloomington, and I find it useful. You usually have roughly 100 customers or caregivers attend that. So again, it's October 24th from 10 to noon at the Wilder Foundation.
Could I just jump in? That's Wednesday, and I think a bunch of us will be at the Revolution conference, unfortunately. I wasn't able to attend last year, and it was quite interesting. Yes. It really was eye-opening.
I think these fall forums, since we've introduced them, have been really a good conduit for us to just listen to the customers and give them an opportunity to provide really valuable feedback. And so I can provide any update for those who are at the Revolution on some of the outcomes at the next meeting. Lastly, on the regional solicitation last Friday, we sent out the draft scores to all the applicants. And that starts the process that eventually ends in January with TAB recommending a set of projects. What that does is there's 134 projects that receive draft scores, and now the applicants have until the end of October to decide if they want to appeal those scores. And every solicitation, we have a few applicants that will appeal a score and ask for clarification. And then they have a chance to present their appeal for TAC funding and programming in early November. And then the scores are finalized, and we begin to develop scenarios that creates the projects that go through the process. We started today with TAB, developing what those scenarios would be for how we divide the money among the projects. But there's roughly $175 million available for this solicitation, and we received $418 million in projects. And so, like always, it'll be a challenging process over the next several months for it to winnow down to the set of projects, but I think we're following a process that seems to work. So that just begins. You may hear from applicants in your area about their individual projects. And once the final scores are out, we'll send the list to everybody on this committee also, so they're aware of the projects. So again, a good set of projects like there is, and just not enough money for all the projects. So with that, Madam Chair, concludes my remarks, and be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Would council members like to see the scores when right now they're just a draft and there's an appeals process? Director Thompson stated, but would you like to see it after that's completed or now?
Yes.
Yes, now. Okay.
Sure.
Thank you. General Manager Lamb.
Yes, Madam Chair. First, let me start out. I know that a few council members in the last week, especially, have received some comments from customers about missed trips, and so I wanted to kind of follow up on that, and have looked at kind of what the pattern has been really for the last 2 months, and really we're making progress. We have kind of a Monday Friday phenomena going. That, for instance, on Monday, the 15th, we lost 10 revenue trips out of 1,500 pullouts. And prior to that, the previous Monday, we lost 21 revenue trips on that. Friday, we'd lost 4 trips previous Friday. But we're continuing to kind of try to stay abreast in terms of our communications. I know, Councilmember Schreiber, I had some emails indicating that customers hadn't been informed. We're tracking down those specific contacts to make sure that we have not missed a loop there. It's never a pleasant news to get that your trip may not be running, but it's better than getting no news, and we recognize that. And so we'll follow up with you specifically on the ones that you have heard about. Councilmember McCarthy, I know you've also had some communication. So we're working on developing responses for you in particular, but if any other council member has heard from any customers, please let me know and we'll definitely follow up on it. But I feel like in the last 2 months actually, we've made quite a bit of progress. We are about 110 drivers below where our ideal was, and we're now in the mid 80s. We have another class of 15 starting this next Monday as well. So we're hoping that we gain about 15 drivers towards our goal at least every month. So we know that we can function because we have for a period of time without any exposure of missed trips. If we can get into that 30 neighborhood, minus 30 to our ideal. So that's what we're striving for. And we're working hard on that. So again, for any council members that have not already let me know about contacts, please do so. On Monday, I was pleased to help present Maple Grove Transit as the Minnesota Public Transit Association System of the Year. The award recognizes Maple Grove Transit's record for innovation and its excellent service record. And if you haven't noticed, they're rebranding their service as well with the new buses. The Metro Transit is doing all of the decal work for them, and hope to have the system converted to their new logo scheme. And they've rebranded their company Dial-A-Ride service as well. And it's really been a pleasure to have provided service for Maple Grove under contract now for about 3 decades. So. Buses leaving downtown Minneapolis will have an easier time getting on the 35W starting next week, the next phase of the project, when the transit-only entrance from downtown onto 35W opens up. And that will save several minutes of travel time, and we hope that will also be a really strong marketing point for those customers along that corridor. Northbound buses would normally operate on 35W will remain on detour as we monitor the traffic. There will be a single lane coming into downtown, but as of right now, we think that's going to be backed up with automobiles. So we have a fairly effective detour routing inbound in the morning, and we'll continue that until we determine that we can go straight into downtown. Our Uptown Transit Station will become the region's most colorful boarding area next week. Artist Ashley Mary will create a colorful mural during a live painting event on Monday afternoon. The mural on the southbound side of Hennepin Avenue will remain in place until next February. Customers can see the mural come together next Monday from 3 to 5:30. To help celebrate the live painting, riders are being invited to join us for hot chocolate and goodies, and we might need the hot chocolate by then. This is the latest in a series of temporary art installations we've commissioned in recent years. A mural depicting the transit system and customer selfies were on display at the Government Plaza station last year. In 2016, an artist turned the inside of a bus into a playful forest with hand-knit features, if you remember that. And then finally, the transit police are once again collecting new or lightly used winter clothing that will be donated to two local service agencies. Collection boxes were placed at several of our work sites this week. Donations will be accepted through November 1st, and donated items will be given to St. Stephen's and Radius Mental Health. As you know, we partner with these other organizations to assist individuals who seek shelter and transit. You may have seen the KSTP story the other day that showed the transit police interacting with the homeless individuals. And if you haven't seen that, I would be happy to forward that link to you. I think it really shows kind of our mission, both from an enforcement standpoint, but just as importantly, with compassion. So with that, Madam Chair, I stand for questions.
Are there any questions? I don't see any. I would agree. The story was a really great example of the work that we're doing. I have not been able to ride on the new buses for Maple Grove, the newly branded buses, but I hope to. Next up is our consent agenda. Is there a motion to approve?
So move.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. And first up on non-consent is 2018-263 small bus procurement from Metro Mobility and Transit Link, and Paul Colton is here to present.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, council members. This afternoon I have for you the following proposed action item, and that is that the Metropolitan Council authorize the regional administrator to execute purchase agreements contingent upon approval of business item 2018-237-JT with the following. One is with North Central Bus Sales for up to 53 replacement buses and 7 expansion buses in an amount not to exceed $4,234,200. And with number 2, Hoagland Bus for up to 26 replacement buses and 14 expansion buses in an amount not to exceed $2,839,500. These are, as you can see, primarily replacement vehicles that are part of our replacement plan. These will be 2019. These are scheduled for 2018 replacement. We're getting a little bit of a late start because these are federally funded, and they are in our most recently awarded federal grant that came through here at the end of September. So now we can proceed with working through the purchase. We also have a portion of our expansion vehicles in that grant, and so we're moving forward with that for 2019 as we continue to see growth in Metro Mobility. Our growth plan matches, fleet growth plan matches what we anticipate for customer growth as well. So this item is contingent upon the capital budget amendment that you approved at the last Transportation Committee meeting and will be approved hopefully by the council next Wednesday. At this point, I'd be glad to entertain any questions that you have.
Are there questions from committee members? If not, is there a motion to approve?
So moved. Second.
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next up is 2018-269 Law Enforcement Network Segmentation Lens. Teresa Nisler, is that correct?
Very good.
Is
thank
here
you.
to present. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Chair and Council members. My name is Teresa Nisler. I'm the Assistant Director of Information Services. The proposed action I have today is that the Metropolitan Council authorize the Regional Administrator to negotiate and award a contract with Insight in an amount not to exceed $900,000 to provide Cisco parts, service, and professional services necessary to segment the Metro Transit Police Department, computers, and network from the other areas of the Council network. Funding for this project is included in business item 2018-237JT, the 2018 budget amendment, third quarter for the Metropolitan Council meeting on October 24th. The overall budget for the network segmentation project is $2,164,482. This joint item has been to the Management Committee on October 10th and will move forward to the full council for the October 24th meeting in conjunction with the overall project and quarter 3 amendment if you approve today. For a bit of background, the Metro Transit Police Department is currently interoperating within the overall regional administration network and Metro Transit network and technology equipment. So it's all combined within our network confines currently. During migration from our legacy police dispatch and records system, Metro Transit Police Department and Council Information Services learned that existing network infrastructure failed to meet requirements for access to criminal justice information. Those security requirements are established by the Federal Bureau of Investigation and administered by the Bureau of Criminal Apprehension. We've been working collaboratively since we discovered that item with both the BCA, Metro Transit Police Department, regional administration, and all the corresponding finance personnel in those areas, and have been very supportive and collaborative in getting this issue resolved, working towards resolution. We've got an agreement from the Bureau of Criminal Apprehension to move forward with our planned approach. The scope of the LENS project is to bring Metro Transit Police Department and the information service systems into CJIS compliance. This capital expenditure is an integral piece of the overall project, and the proposed action is needed to address the reliability and security of the council's ability to maintain its police department, and it supports the Thrive outcomes of stewardship and sustainability. And I would be happy to answer any questions at this time you might have.
Are there questions? Councilmember Munt.
Madam Chair, Teresa, does the LENS network allow us to share information with other police departments in the region?
That segmented network will comply with CJIS requirements, and if that's allowed, it will allow it.
Are there further questions? Is there a motion?
So moved, Madam Chair.
Second?
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you very much. Next up is 2018-272 Electric Bus MOU and Charging Infrastructure Agreement. Pat Jones and Carrie Desmond are here to present.
Good evening, Madam Chair and council members. My name is Pat Jones. I'm the Assistant Director for Engineering and Facilities at Metro Transit. And tonight I have with me Carrie Desmond. She's the latest addition to the Engineering and Facilities Department. We hired her on at the end of July, and she came to us via WSP Chicago office. And from what we've seen so far, we're very impressed, and she's going to offer a lot to a number of projects, as you'll hear tonight. With 2 different items. So get a chance, just welcome Carrie. But I will start this off. Tonight, on this business item, we're asking for you to authorize the regional administrator to negotiate and execute a memorandum of understanding, as well as a bus and charging infrastructure agreement with Xcel Energy. And this is the culmination of over a year, almost 2 years of activity associated with the Green Partnership Agreement MOU that was signed earlier this year, but activities that we took on with Xcel, myself, Brian Funk, Brian Lamb, and others to try to determine how can Xcel help us move electrification of vehicles forward. And the timing worked out with this project where Xcel had some ideas that actually fit into the project parameters. So we're going to talk a little bit about that here tonight. And I'm going to start off, and then I'll hand this off to Carrie. But typically on any kind of project we would have with Xcel, they would be in it for the infrastructure to the site, as well as the transformer and the meter. That's a typical standard Xcel installation. And through the tariff process with the PUC. There's a revenue justification process that they go through to justify that level of investment in a property or in a project. So what we talked to them about was how can we expand that? How can we broaden that application to better suit our needs here with electric buses, knowing that electric buses are going to draw a lot of power and that revenue justification argument can be stretched a little bit further into the building with some of the infrastructure. So this slide represents the 3 levels of investment that are being made on infrastructure for electric buses. The first line, the blue number 1, is that typical transformer meter installation that Xcel would do. The second level down is that red bar. That's the infrastructure to get the power from the transformer into the building to the charger itself. That third element is the charger. And so what we're doing here is, and this is a pilot project for Xcel as much as us, but it's a pilot project for them to invest in that infrastructure in between the meter and the charger. The charger is being purchased as part of our federal grant, as well as the other investments that the council is making. So that is an investment of ours. We will be the owner of the charger. But the difference here and the purpose for the whole agreement is that Xcel will be contracting for that middle piece, bringing conduit, wires, switchgear, all the glory of electrical infrastructure to that charger, and then we'll just have to connect the charger. And it was a pretty big deal for them, number one, to convince their management that this was a good investment on their part. It was a good pilot, and they're taking a tariff request to the PUC to expand this further, this being the pilot example of this idea, supporting that. So that's why there's 2 items here. The MOU is really in support of their tariff application. The agreement will be more of the operations and maintenance aspects that we'll be working with them on. And with that, I'm going to turn over to Carrie. She's going to talk a little bit more about this.
Thanks, Pat. So a little bit of background how we got here. Early in 2018, there was a council item or business item to approve the purchase of the electric buses and the chargers that we're talking about here. And then from there in June, there was the Green Energy Partnership with Xcel, which laid out a number of initiatives, one of them being this pilot project. So from there, we've got 2 different items, like Pat mentioned, for today, one of them being a MOU that lays out the broader vision for Xcel's pilot. So not only does it include this particular application for helping us with the infrastructure for the chargers we're installing in 2019, but also opens the potential for them to assist us and other customers with future projects like this. The other item is the infrastructure agreement, which is specific to the construction operations and maintenance of what Xcel is proposing to install for us for our first round of chargers. So we've got 2 different types of chargers that are going to be going in. The first one is at the Haywood garage. So these are the chargers that are going to work overnight to do the bulk of the charging to get the buses up to full capacity for morning pull-out. We've got 8 different chargers, so that we've got one for each of the 8 buses. And they can fully charge a bus in about 4 hours. So it'll be just like you go to the gas station with the pump, you'll pull up here and have a charger to plug into the back of the bus to charge it. The other one we have is up at Brooklyn Center Transit Center. So that's an overhead charger that buses will be able to pull up to in between runs when they're there to do a quick charge to kind of top off the charge on the bus. So a driver will be able to pull up to it. There's a pantograph above the bus that'll come down to mate with the roof of the bus and charge it. So looking at Brooklyn Center Transit Center, we've got 2 different locations on the outer drive aisle where the buses will pull up to do that. Those are the yellow boxes you see on the perimeter. And then in the Haywood garage, the red outline shows where the chargers are going to go. So they're going to go down the middle of two aisles so that buses can charge from either aisle. Showing where, like I mentioned, where they pull up to charge, and then where they'll exit the garage from, maintenance area in the garage, and where they enter from. So you can kind of see a cycle of where they'll move through the garage. The last one we have here is a schedule of where we're at on the project. So engineering work is complete, and we're working to align the charger installation with bus delivery, with the first one coming in January of next year, and then subsequent deliveries coming through April. We currently have our piece of the installation for the chargers out for bid. Bids are actually due tomorrow, so I'm anxiously awaiting that. And Excel has bid their portion of the work, so they're ready to go and support us on this, assuming we can move forward on the agreement we discussed. And then that'll encompass a temporary charger to help with the first bus coming in January, and then permanent charger installations coming later in the spring, so that we can support testing, training, and getting ready to operate service for the C line later next year. So just as a refresher, we're looking for approval today to negotiate and authorize the regional administrator to execute both a memorandum of understanding as well as a infrastructure agreement with Excel. And with that, I will entertain any questions.
Are there questions from committee members? Councilmember McCarthy.
I'm curious, the overhead charger, how long does that also take 4 hours to charge?
Madam Chair, council members, so for that one, we're looking at probably increments of about 10 minutes. So between runs, it's not going to fully charge the vehicle in that time. It's just to top it off on each run throughout the day. And then wherever it ends at the end of the day, it'll get back to full overnight in the garage.
Councilmember Munt.
Madam Chair, Carrie, another curiosity question. If it takes 4 hours for a C-Line bus to charge, how many hours is the bus in motion on the street? Any given day?
Madam Chair, Councilmember Munt, I might be able to answer that. We're currently cutting the blocks anywhere between 15 to 20 hours, and is a service day right now for the C-Line buses.
Are there further questions?
I move adoption, Madam Chair.
Second.
First and second, but we have one more question. Councilmember
Oh, I didn't
Lozowski.
see.
Hi. Hi. I don't actually have a question. I just want to say how exciting it is that we're actually like seeing what this infrastructure looks like and being able to test it out in real life. So I was hoping to second it, but I'll third it and then wait for the vote.
I've also been really impressed with staff. They've been the discussions at the detailed level of how to integrate this and to set it up so that we're getting as much learning as we can from this new technology has really been impressive and thoughtful, and making sure that there's no disruption to the service. So I fourth it. It's been first and seconded. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
Yeah, the batteries are good enough now.
Next up is 2018-275. It's I-94 and Manning Park and Ride.
Little overhead things are just
And Pat.
periodically.
Pat's back for this one.
Yes, Madam Chair and Councilman does stay right here and present this one as well. Tonight, we're looking to authorize the regional administrator to negotiate with EN Properties on the acquisition of property in Lake Elmo for the I-94 Manning Park and Ride. This project has been many years in the makings, and I'm very excited to be here to talk about it, quite frankly. We've been working on this since earlier than 2010, when as we started doing park and ride surveys and identifying needs from park and ride standpoint, that the East Metro was quickly coming to capacity between our two major park and rides out in that area, the Guardian Angels Church and the Woodbury Theater. We actually, around that time, expanded Guardian Angels to deal with the excess capacity, and pretty much brought that to the maximum that we could. And at that time, we looked at a couple different opportunities. One was at Keats in 94, and the other was at Manning, and quickly determined that Manning was probably the better candidate. And so since then, we've been pursuing a park and ride for that location. In 2012, we applied for a Cmac grant and were awarded that for $7 million, and that $7 million was split between service, buses, and facilities. Things were moving along at that time. We were looking at a piece of property in Woodbury, and then the Gold Line came along, and the planning and local municipal consent for the Gold Line. And some questions were raised both by Woodbury and eventually Lake Elmo about placement of the park and ride in relation to how Gold Line service would lay out. Primarily, it was a question of what was going to be the terminus of Gold Line. Would it make sense to have the terminus line up with this new park and ride? And so it actually took about 1.5 to 2 years to sort through all that. And eventually it came, as you know, excuse me, Gold Line determined that they would not terminate out in this part of Woodbury at all. And right now they're at the Woodbury Theater location for a terminus. So that freed this project up then to just be a park and ride again. And it simplified things from that perspective. And at that point, we took another look at, well, where is the best spot to put this park and ride? And came to the conclusion that Lake Elmo in this northwest quadrant of 494 or 94 in Manning was that location. Reasons being access and visibility. So we also realized that we needed a little bit more money to do this. So in 2018, this year, actually back in 17, we programmed the funds, but applied for the grant here in 18 to bring in another 2.3 million to fully fund the project. But this project will, on the day it opens, provide AM and PM trips to Minneapolis and the future St. Paul. So just going to zoom in a little bit more here on the site. Much of this block, a mega block, is owned by EN Properties. They have about 65 acres. And they've been looking at developing it for the past couple of years in a couple of different segments. They've got some local school property that are local school district interest in a bus garage facility, believe it or not. We know a little bit about that, as you'll hear later. Our park and ride, and then some interchange type development that will be north of us. So if I can orient you a little bit here, we've got Manning on the right. We have 94 at the bottom of the page. The area that's highlighted in black is where the park and ride will be located. And you can see that there's an outline of a roadway there. The frontage road actually goes through what will be our site. But with the city planning, city future plans for development, we needed to realign that whole roadway. And we actually aren't doing that, the developer is doing it. So as part of this project, it's been a lot of coordination with the developer, with the city, with the county, MnDOT being that the road, we got the highway, and a segment of the road is MnDOT's, the other piece is the county's. We're coordinating with all those entities to figure out where this roadway realignment will happen. And you can see there it shifts up to the north. It ties into Manning then at an existing intersection. And that frees up the space for our park and ride, as well as development for the developer and future development to the west of the roadway for the developer. So there's a lot going on here. And then in addition to that, we've got pedestrian and bike trails that will be along this segment, as well as new sewer and water services. So I say all that, but I want to assure you that our project is primarily the park and ride. Much of that other work is all being done through the development. And we don't have we don't have a role in that. We're going to be waiting for them to finish up some of this infrastructure work before we can get actually started with our construction.
Madam Chair?
Yes, Councilmember Latowski.
Thank you, Chair. Pat, did you say, and I just missed it, what kind of development? Is it going to be like a retail kind of place, or is it going to be job? Do we know?
Yes, Madam Chair and Councilmember Lutovsky. The segment, they haven't locked anything in quite yet. They have a lot of people interested. What they have shown so far is that area to the north of our park and ride would be interchange related type businesses. There could be a gas station there, some retail, strip mall type development. But to the west of that, that whole other block that currently now is a cornfield, there's a lot of opportunity there. I think right now it's zoned as light commercial. So they're looking at, the city is really looking at having this, the class development.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Thanks.
I will also mention that that development probably isn't going to happen next year or 2 or 3 years. This is something that's probably going to play out over 10 years. So just to zoom in a little bit more on the park and ride site layout itself, we're talking about 550 parking stalls on a little less than 6 acres. This facility will include a bus operator restroom, given that it's so far out to the east in the system. This will be a terminus point and a spot for drivers who bring their buses out there to lay over for a few minutes before they start their trip. So having those facilities is important from that operational perspective. We'll have bus shelters with heat and light like we do at all of our park and rides. The parking lot will be lit with LED lighting. We'll have a couple electric vehicle charging stations, and you don't see a stormwater pond here because we actually determined that it was more cost effective to do underground stormwater storage. So that's going to be on the site underneath the parking lot. Primary reason is we didn't have to buy the additional property to put that in place. So let me see if I can get this. Oh, Greg's got it going for me. So our consultant put together this little rendition flyover of the parking ride so you can see what it's going to look like. It's a little 1-minute clip. So what you're looking at is the boarding platform area where the buses will pull up on that near side roadway. We have a couple of shelters out there for initially 1, but then eventually 2. You can see a structure there for the driver break room. The other nice thing about the development aspect of this is that not only for our passengers to have a strip mall type amenities close by as they're coming and going, a gas station right there, but also for our drivers if they need to hop over there for some reason. And then just a little bit about the funding and budget for this project. So as I mentioned, we have a Cmac grant from the 2012 cycle, as well as these federal funds that we received this year in a grant, totaling about $7.65 million. Both of those are 80-20 federal local match type arrangements. For the project, we have about, particularly with this business item, $3.5 million of land acquisition that we're doing. $3.55 million worth of construction, and then a little over $500,000 in project management and construction management, our architectural engineering consultant costs. I'll just wrap up here with the project schedule and the near-term activities. We are in that second yellow block, finalizing approvals, platting of this property once we have a acquisition agreement in place. We'll be starting construction next year. We intend to put this out for bids in the early spring, late winter timeframe in order to get the best value for our bidding on the bidding cycle. And then, as I mentioned, we're going to be somewhat following behind the developer as they relocate the roadway. So we don't anticipate construction to really be into full swing until late in the summer after that roadway's been relocated, but that will still allow us for a start of operations in a December timeframe. And with that, I will stand for questions.
Councilmember Lutovsky.
Great, thanks. So Pat, who, are we still gonna have the other, was it Guardian Angel location?
Madam Chair and Councilmember Lutovsky, yes, we will. Those facilities will still be in full swing. But this facility, we anticipate will, at start of day one, be at roughly about 250 car capacity. And then over the next, it's sized for a 2030 timeframe.
And where are those people gonna be coming from?
Madam Chair and Councilmember Lutovsky, yeah, it's a good question. One which we just recently did the park and ride study for this year. We do not have all the data yet for the parking license plate information, but that was part of the study this year. So we'll have a better sense of who's parking in Guardian Angels and the theater lots at this point that would divert to here. But primarily it's going to be Eastern Woodbury, Lake Elmo folks, anybody between here and the river. And then, of course, there's going to be some Wisconsinites who are coming across and looking for a place to park. They'll hop on our buses, and that'll free up those freeways for all of us Minnesotans, right?
Councilmember Munt.
Madam Chair, it has always bothered me that Wisconsinites escape from Scott Walker's economy for jobs in Minnesota and don't contribute to our transit taxing district. But that said, we need to expand our capacity because otherwise folks from Wisconsin will be parking in the neighborhoods around our park and rides. And I'm thrilled that the layout here captures their earnings at a strip mall where they can pay into Minnesota's tax base.
Councilmember Lutovsky, did you still have a question or?
It was a similar point
Okay.
that was made by my colleague.
All right, are there any other questions? Now, is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thanks, Pat.
Thank you.
Next up is the work plan, Brian Lamb and Nick Thompson.
Madam Chair, we didn't rehearse this part
No,
of
we
it.
didn't.
So I think I'll just lead off. This is coming to you ahead of when we usually present the work plan. And we're asking a little bit faster turnaround as well. And that is part of the transitional planning that's going on so that we and you can feel comfortable that the incoming council really has a kind of a solid understanding of what the types of issues that they'll be facing in the coming year. And if it looks familiar in terms of kind of the types of issues, it should, because I think a breakdown, at least from a Metro Transit perspective, will certainly give updated project updates. The C line, of course, will be coming online. The green line, we hope, will be giving project updates all through the year as well. Orange line, we're anticipating that small start funding grant and construction to continue in earnest on that project. The D line, of course, and the list goes on and on from projects. We'll also give periodic updates on upcoming events, whether they're the Final Four planning, the State Fair, of course, the Twins, and other kinds of events that really take a concerted effort. We'll continue to give updates and forecasts in terms of operations, whether there be police operations, whether they be where we're going with the electrification of the fleet and those kinds of things affecting our day-to-day operations. We'll certainly talk through about 2019 is going to be a big year in terms of plans. As we have indicated, our service improvement plan will get a a freshening up, if you will. But also our rapid bus network. We'll take another hard look at that and hopefully have kind of cascading down from the transportation policy plan, good service improvement plans for the next council to consider. Sustainability and shared mobility are another efforts that we really want to bring forward on a regular basis. Then there's the ongoing technology and efficiencies, whether it's the next generation of fare tools that we're in development for. iDash was as an internal management thing to make it more efficient. Next trip, of course, trying to provide more reliable information to our customers on the streets are just kind of a smorgasbord, if you will, of the types of issues that I know we'll continue to bring forward for the committee work plan. And maybe I'll turn it over to Nick and he can kind of summarize the MTS led information items, and then we're obviously want to listen to any other suggestions you might have.
Well, thanks, Brian. I'll highlight a few items that are new, expected next year that related to contract and planning. In terms of procurements of existing contractors or contracts that we have, there are two that'll go through process next year, and they're in the transit link. And so we'll be putting those out for competitive bid in Dakota and Washington counties. Those are 5-year contracts, and so the end of 5 years is coming up next year. And then we'll provide our routine updates on ridership and other. We'll be purchasing a lot of buses like we did tonight, with especially in the Metro Mobility and Transit Link programs. In terms of our transportation planning and MPO, we've started the TBI data collection of that 10-year plan that we have, and we'll be providing some updates from our travel behavior in the region and any new learnings that we gain through those surveys. We've talked at this committee about connected and autonomous vehicles. Our plan for next year, we have several items in our work plan adopted through TPP, but the Governor's Advisory Task Force will be wrapping up in December, and we expect that they'll have some recommendations that we'll bring to this committee, and then that could inform some of our connected and autonomous work next year and updates there. In terms of planning, a couple plans that we will have. We have a freeway system, the system interchange study that is just kicking off this fall, and so there'll be a couple updates as we progress through that. We're doing our first ever before and after study of the projects that have been funded through regional solicitation. They're doing a study of the ones that have actually been built. There's this long period from when they're selected to when they actually are built. So we want to kind of go pick a series of projects that are up and open to the public, and kind of look at what the benefits are, what they were proposed, so that people can be assured that the projects in the process really does pick projects that provide good benefits. So the results of that will be next year. I think there'll be at least 30 projects studied in that. We'll be wrapping up our congestion management planning process, which is really a process we're working with our county and city stakeholders to develop a plan for managing congestion, not just on freeways, but all the major highways in the region. That's part of a federally required process that came out of our review that the federal highway asked that we improve our planning process for congestion. And a little bit more than normal airport planning efforts will come through the committee next year. It's just a function of what's happening at the regional airports. Typically, we have our capital improvement from the MAC that comes through the committee, but we are expecting possibly, some of these are not exactly firmed up if it'll be next year, but an environmental review for Lake Elmo and their plan for expanding or changing the runway there. South St. Paul is due for a long-term comp plan. It's not firmed up, but that's a possibility. There's also the MSP long-term comp plan that has been, we've been delaying that some, but there'll be work, I think, starting next year. That's a very comprehensive process that involves a lot of committees, a lot of work, so hopefully that'll start next year. I don't expect it'll be completed. So more so than a typical year for aviation coming through this committee. This past year, we've done a lot of county meetings that a lot of you have attended with us, and as part of the TPP process, we found those were quite useful, I think, good dialogues, and we plan to continue those next year and provide updates to this committee. So a mix of some new studies and then some of the routine that will come through the committee next year.
Thank you. Feedback, comments? Councilmember Barber.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm really happy to hear that you're going to continue the meetings with the counties. I think that's made a huge difference because a lot of the questions we get are related to transportation planning, that type of thing. And I really think the dialogue has significantly improved over the last couple of years. And I think it's because we're having more face-to-face discussions. So I'm really glad to see that.
Agreed. Councilmember Munt and then Councilmember Platovsky.
Madam Chair, Brian, the only thing that I saw missing from the plan was an update on the TAP program. I know that it's extremely important to the Equity Advisory Committee that we fund the TAP program to meet the demand.
Madam Chair, Councilmember Munt, I thought I had definitely had put that on there for a mid-year update, but we will make sure it is on there because you're absolutely right.
Councilmember Platovsky.
Thanks, Chair. I just want to amplify what Councilmember Barber said about the face-to-face stuff and getting out of these rooms and out into the community a little bit more. I think a couple years ago we went and did a committee meeting, and that, maybe we could do it better next time, but I think that that's really important to get these meetings out into the different communities that we serve. So I would add that. And then I don't know if this goes on the work plan, but some tours of some of these transit routes that we're working on with the new committee members would be important. We've done the Botno line tour with us, and those things are really important, I think, for us to see kind of on the ground how these routes are running through the communities that we serve.
All great suggestions. Yeah, we haven't been on the road in over a year, so I think maybe not once a quarter though. Do you think twice a year might be better?
Yeah. And thoughtfully, strategically located and when part of the year that those are happening.
Any other comments, suggestions, questions? No. So do we need a motion to approve then?
So
Yes,
moved.
Madam Chair.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. We need to decide what will go on consent. The first item, the small bus procurement, probably normally would, but we can't because there's a budget amendment and it's contingent upon that on the same meeting. So that is on non-consent. I would suggest that number 2 and number 4 could be on consent, and that number 3 may be something we want to put on non-consent because it's been an item that's been of interest of the whole council. Is that good? I get nodding heads.
Yep.
Okay, very good. Is there anything else for the good of the cause? Otherwise, we can be adjourned.
Oh,
We have one
Madam
information.
Chair, there is one thing.
Oh my
for the
gosh,
good of the cause.
information. I'm so sorry I missed it. There is a big thing. New Minneapolis Bus Garage. Carrie, I'm sorry. The voting was done. This is our good news story.
Madam Chair, committee members, one more. So again, Pat Jones, Engineering Facilities for Metro Transit. And I should have mentioned, Carrie is our project manager for these couple of projects. They're very big, very challenging. And again, what we've seen from her in the past couple of months, just in getting engaged and using her expertise has been tremendous. So I think you can hear it even in her voice as she talks about these projects, how quickly she's come up to speed on them. But I'm going to start off here a little bit talking about this very important project. We're here tonight because there's been a couple of recent developments that have helped us to propel the garage forward. And we think it's important that you keep abreast of where we are in the process, what the building is looking like, and some of the aspects of it that are going into it. So the big one that General Manager Lamb mentioned last week was the $11 million FTA Discretionary Grant Award that we received. This was our third time applying for it. Third time was a charm. We got the $11 million was the highest that was awarded. think there were 4 other agencies or entities that got similar awards, and we're very pleased to do that. And it was a process of getting all of our stakeholders involved and getting letters of support from local legislative folks that just culminated in a good application. So we're very happy about that. In addition, you heard at the last meeting from Mr. Petrie about the budget, the third quarter budget amendment, and how we're looking to primarily fund the rest of this project, which is a pretty big lift. And so that plays into this, certainly. Engineering-wise, we're at the 75% mark, and we're quickly moving towards 100% completion of our design plans for a bid in early 2019. And from a timing standpoint, you don't want that to lag too far from when you're actually doing the construction. And Carrie will talk a little bit more about that. And that construction start, if everything plays out here as we anticipate, would be in the late spring of 2019. So everything is falling into place. And from the time that we started working on this project, acquiring land back in 2005, it's been a long road. So I'll just leave that at that point. But I'm going to jump to, I already covered that stuff. We'll jump to slide 3 here. I just want to orient you a little bit. Again, we have we purchased a little bit over 10 acres for this project, and let me put my glasses on so I can see here. In this image on the lower right-hand corner is the kind of front end part of the Haywood campus. So that's where the existing Haywood office building is. That's where the new PD is being constructed. And then as we move to the northwest, you've got the existing Haywood bus garage, the TCC, and then across 10th Avenue will be the new bus garage. It's the big blue piece in that upper left-hand corner. The new garage will be about 350,000 square feet. It'll house both maintenance and storage of the buses. And we anticipate about 216 buses will call this location home, which is on par with East Metro, the East Metro Transit Facility. The only bus garage that's larger than this from a capacity standpoint is the existing Haywood facility, which is part of the problem. It's overcapacity. So it actually has a smaller footprint, and some of the buses will move into the new garage as part of a way to get that facility back into an efficient operation. We anticipate that this project will have a pretty big impact on jobs. We know these projects do anything of this size. So just in the operators and maintenance staff that will ultimately be in this facility and operating it, there are 400 jobs there. And then for the construction aspects, we anticipate about 300 jobs or more that will go into building this facility. You know, we looked at the needs for this facility. The main point, even back in 2006, was that a lot of our service is oriented around the Minneapolis area and particularly this corridor. So at the time it was all roads led to Haywood was kind of the mantra, and that led us to the land acquisition and everything that kicked off this project. And the other part of it is the access. I mentioned that with the 94 Manning Park project, but making sure that we have good access to the highways and infrastructure that allow us to get our buses around was important as well. And then there's the ability just for our employees to access the site. And again, this is an ideal site for that. It's close to North Minneapolis. We anticipate as part of this project, there will be an effort to recruit and train people in the area. We know that would be a big benefit to that part of town. And so we anticipate or intend to draw from that area as future employees. And then lastly, this rounds out our campus approach. You've been involved and heard about our campus master planning, this being a big component of that. And having all the services, management, the TCC all in close proximity to this facility really help in our efficient operations overall. And with that, oh, here comes our fly-ins. So again, this just was showing the police department facility that's under construction, the existing Haywood garage, the new garage, and Carrie will cover a lot of this, the new garage entry for staff as well as the offices will be in that south corner, and then the buses will enter and exit up on the north side. And with that, I'll turn it over to Carrie.
Thanks, Pat. So as Pat mentioned, we're looking at a 350,000 square foot facility. So just a little bit of space in there. And it's got 2 different levels. So staff parking is down below and entered off of 10th Avenue. And then the bus storage will be on the main level up above. And we've actually got pretty substantially sloping site. So both of those floors are more or less at street level for their respective entrances coming in. We talked a little bit about capacity. We're looking at 24 maintenance bays to do the various functions in the garage, from fueling to cleaning and general maintenance on that equipment. And about 216 buses for capacity. So really looking to relieve some of the congestion and overcapacity at other facilities by adding this one here. A few of the different ways we're addressing sustainability in this facility. One of them is, you heard me talk earlier about electric buses. So this is a facility we're looking to for the future as we expand that fleet to be ready for electric bus implementation. Another interesting and neat feature is there's a solar thermal wall. So it allows air to come in from the outside and kind of preheats it as it's brought into the building for fresh air for the heating system, reducing the overall thermal load on the building for heating. Another one is we're storing rainwater off the roof to use for the first cycle and cleaning buses. So that's estimated to reduce our need for water by about 1/3, potable water. And then this is going to be one of our most energy efficient buildings. So you'll see a stat on the screen that we're looking to be sub 50 KTBU per square foot per year. To put that in perspective, on average, one of our facilities is around 80. So really looking to increase the energy efficiency at this facility. And then the other piece is really bringing the next generation of maintenance facilities for our staff, our mechanics, our operators. So we're looking to have 100% Wi-Fi coverage throughout the facility. The reason that's important is as we bring in new tools, new technology, most of those are running on Wi-Fi now, so having that capability. Also having all the different lifts, the type of equipment we need to do our work in there for our staff, and then really looking to be able to better support our preventive maintenance functions so that we're meeting or exceeding our goals for mean time to failure out on the street. One of the things throughout implementation of this project that's been really beneficial to the design team is having a core advisory team made up of folks from operations, maintenance, and material management to help us inform the design process to make sure that what we're putting out there is going to be efficient and effective for our staff who are doing the work in the facility. Then from there, this supports several of the Thrive 2040 outcomes. You heard some about sustainability a few moments ago, from the electric buses to the thermal wall, the water storage, and other methods. Also looking at equity, you heard Pat mention potential jobs for North Minneapolis, the job count in general, but also providing the necessary storage we need to meet the expansion of service. Right now we're over capacity, and as we look to expand service, we need a place to put the new fleet. And then finally, looking at livability, as we support that expansion of service, that increased access to transit throughout the community. As the population grows, this facility will help enable that. So we'll walk through a few renderings here with a number of fly-throughs as well. So this is looking from the east. So we've got 10th Avenue as on this side of the building, the main entrance that Pat referred to earlier where employees will enter the building, as well as the entrance into the operator's suite. Got the Transit Control Center across the street. Staff parking entrance down below off of 10th Avenue. Bus parking will be up on the second level or the main level. Bus entrance off of 11th Avenue. And then the bus maintenance area to the upper portion of the screen there. And those pop-ups you see are windows or ceiling windows into the facility to bring natural light in for those workers. And also the potential, we've got a big open flat roof here, so strong potential for putting solar panels, solar array up on the roof in the future as well. Looking from the other side of the facility from the west, we've got Lyndale Avenue and North 7th Street. And then again, that bus maintenance area with all the ceiling roof openings to bring in natural light. Bus parking up above. The bus entrance off of 11th and exit onto 11th as well. And just looking at a floor plan here, this is for the bus storage area. So we've got the operations suite called out to the right, bus parking for the 216 vehicles we mentioned before, area to change tires, exit area onto 11th, fueling area to wash the buses, the pull-in door where they'll enter the facility, area where they'll stop and have fares taken off the bus and cash counting capabilities, and then the bus maintenance portion of the floor. So for where we're at today, as Pat mentioned, this one's been a long time coming, starting with first land purchase in 2006. At this point, we are rapidly approaching the end of design. The design team is working to have those construction documents ready towards the end of the year, allowing us to go to bid early next year, and then look to award a contract and start in spring. Estimated to be about a 2-year construction timeline for the project, so that puts us at mid-2021 for opening this facility. With that, I'm going to turn it back over to Pat to talk a bit about funding.
So, Madam Chair and committee members, we've been tracking this budget and funding for about as long as we've been talking about this project. Right now, we are looking at a $120 million project. You can see the breakdown of how the budget plays out between land acquisition, the design management, construction management, costs that we had with site preparation. There's a lot of demolition with this building, if you remember, between the multiple sites that were purchased. We've got equipment, as Carrie was mentioning, the state-of-the-art equipment, both from lifts and hoists and things to properly control the indoor air quality in the building. All of that plays into this facility. It will be state-of-the-art on the day we open it. And then the $87 million worth of just pure construction. And this project, if you've been to our East Metro facility, you see a lot of similarities between the two layouts. That, when it was constructed in 2001, was our most efficient state-of-the-art facility at that time. We're looking to improve on that facility with this one as well, not only from the ability of being able to maintain and operate buses most effectively, but also from the standpoint of having the infrastructure in place for the electrification of the fleet. We're thinking ahead about how we're going to actually deploy chargers to 216 bus level capacity. with what we talked about a little earlier in the program today, putting in 8 chargers in one spot in the garage is a fairly manageable thing to do. But without the forethought that we're putting into it now to be able to charge a large number of electric buses, we really need to do that now so that it's ready and able to do that, not just from the standpoint of having the gross power available from XL, but locating where those transformers will go, locating how we're going to deploy the chargers throughout the building, get the large conductors of wire to those chargers, and then also think about the resiliency that we need for the electrification of the fleet, whether that's through diesel-powered generators or solar power or perhaps a battery bank. How do we best and effectively do that? This facility is going to have all those capabilities, and we're very excited about that. On the funding side, earlier this year we had about $20 million in the bank that we've been using for land acquisition, or I've spent on land acquisition. Also with our design service contract, we've been using those funds for that to get to the 75% point that we are today. But really, it's been a couple of these grants that have come in and the rest of the funding package that puts us in a position to be moving forward on the construction. The Cmac grant that's mentioned here, we received that, if you recall, last year, and that'll come into play in 2019, as well as the $11 million federal grant that I mentioned earlier that we were awarded earlier this fall. So between those two things and the rest of the funding packages identified there, that's how we're putting this $120 million package together. And with that, we stand for questions.
Are there questions from committee members?
Yes.
Councilmember Elkins.
So I see that the solar is noted as future. So what would the timing be for that? Do you know?
Madam Chair and Council Member, this facility will be ready for it. So we're planning for the infrastructure, switchgear, all the equipment that has to go in to make solar operational in this type of facility to this scale. We can put potentially 2 megawatts of power up on that roof, which is double what we've talked about at any of our other facilities, single facilities. So it's a lot of potential. We're looking to identify additional funds for this, but I don't anticipate with all of the other priorities that this council has that we're going to be able to just off our own dime be able to pay for this. So
it's mainly just a funding issue.
Right.
And then
Councilmember
related to that, does the design contemplate the possibility of also having battery packs so that we could charge the batteries during the day and use the batteries to charge the buses at night?
Madam Chair and Councilmember, yeah, that's what I was talking about a little bit earlier. We're still working through with our electrical engineers on how exactly we best do that. It's most efficient and cost effective for the council. But it could be a combination of solar, batteries, generators, again, to provide not only the most cost-effective way to power buses, but also that resiliency that we need in the event that the power goes out. We will have a secondary feed like we do at many of our other facilities, but quite honestly, there are occasions where we have to make sure we have the power. And with electric buses, we're going to have our own means to provide that power.
Okay, thank you.
Are there any other questions? Councilmember Munt.
Madam Chair, just a statement. My 2 takeaways from this are that you've designed a facility where we're poised for growth and the technology changes that are coming in the future. And I approach this as an ATU member. I would be much more likely to come to work at Metro Transit and work in this garage with better air quality and efficient systems than I would at the current garage. So I think this is also going to be a recruitment tool for us.
Madam
Councilmember.
Chair, if I could just make a comment to that. You know, our experience with East Metro Garage was that, again, that was the state of the art at that time, and we took a lot of the things we learned from that construction to the other garages. And I expect the same thing here, that as we're finalizing these designs and putting them into place and people are seeing how they work and operate, that we'll be taking those lessons learned and outfitting the other garages with a lot of these improvements.
Councilmember Elkins.
Yeah, this follow up to that. What happens to the Haywood garage, and what kind of modification? What will its role be after this one is opened?
Madam Chair, Councilmember Elkins, as Pat mentioned, we are already oversubscribed.
Yep.
And if, even at a modest 2 or 3% growth per year, we feel like we may end up being at full capacity with this sixth facility before the end of the 2020s. And so it really isn't an either or. We're going to need both.
Are there further questions? Now, is there anything else for the good of the order? My apologies. Councilmember Reynoso.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Wondering if we could have a quick conversation about possibly moving the transportation meetings back to the Roberts Street, considering the difficult parking situation over at Haywood. It would just be for 2 months, November and December. We normally move back over here in January, so is that something we can discuss as a committee?
I would suggest you take transit. That would be my answer. Yeah, can we bring it up at a future meeting? Can we talk about it at a future meeting?
In November?
November 7th, it's not too long.
Madam Chair, the next meeting will be here, as a matter of fact, so you're partway there. But if from a council member perspective, we try to make sure that there is always enough visitor parking for the meetings that are scheduled. If you're finding difficulties parking right outside of the door, please let me know, and we'll scrape that much harder.
Anything else?
We can talk about it the next meeting.
Here.
Thank you. We can be adjourned.